Hey, James, are you on the call?
Yeah, am I on?
You are on the call. Our screeners have quite a intro for you. They say that you have proof for the existence of God.
We always love that.
Well, first I want to say I'm a huge fan of you guys. And actually, Tracie, a year and a half ago, I had emailed the place about a question because I'm not a fundamentalist, and I had a problem with my fundamentalist fan when you actually responded and were very encouraging. I wanted to give a shout out to you for that.
I'm glad if I was helpful.
You go, Tracie.
So that was a big deal for me. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Glad I can help.
Yes, ma'am. Please bear with me. I'm far more articulate on paper, writing it out, than speaking. So please bear with me. But yeah. So the thing about God and proving Him and stuff from the logical, philosophical standpoint. First, it comes, in my opinion, from what I've been thinking is, first of all, when someone asks, like, do you believe in God or is there a God, they normally ask from a preconceived standpoint. It's not just God in the big sense. It's usually God. When they ask if you believe in God, they're more specifically asking, do you believe in Jesus or do you believe in Allah? Or do you
it's important to define terms when you have conversations like that, because God has a lot of baggage. It's a pretty nebulous term, right?
Right. And so when people are asking, it's usually defined. It's usually defined in very minute terms, but they ask it in a very broad way. So what I'm thinking is, like, perhaps when people ask about the existence of God, they're asking the wrong question. And you, Don, I think you were mentioning something earlier in the show about, like, how much we actually know about consciousness and about stuff like that.
We're learning. Yeah.
Right. And that actually brought up an interesting thought in my head. At least I think it's interesting. I may be wrong, but, like, perhaps maybe, like, the sum total of consciousness and creativity and the sum parts of the universe and scientific theories and stuff may actually be, for lack of a better term, God. And it's not a very sexy definition of God. It's like you wouldn't trace to the law of thermodynamics or anything, but it may actually be, like I said, for lack of a better term.
Just if I can interrupt you, this sounds a lot like pantheism. So there is a group.
Well,
No.
It's not in the spiritual sense.
I'm not talking about a spiritual sense. I'm just saying that their idea is that He is the sum total of everything.
Well, then that may be it. I'm speaking as a layman, and so what I may be thinking may have already been touched upon by other people, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you might look this up. If this is an idea that interests you, pantheism is the idea that the universe or everything is God. And then you have a further idea that is called panentheism, which is that everything is God, but then there's this sort of, once you put everything together, there's this additional, like, turn it up to 11, right? There's like an additional thing that is more than the universe once it all comes together, which is the kind of more divine aspect to it. So you've got the pantheist who is just sort of saying, I'm in awe of the universe. And then you've got the panentheist who is saying, the universe is more than the universe, and that's what is God to me.
What I heard is that you had this thing over here that is awesome and big and complex, and you want to give it a synonym of God. And why would you want to bring all that baggage that the word God has with it, and not just take this thing as it is, and give it the name that it has, and leave God out of it? What benefit is there to doing that? It seems like it muddies the waters to me.
I guess for me, it's the idea of trying to come up with some sort of label or something for the entirety of the universe. And
how about universe?
Universe is a great name.
I kind of come at it from another perspective, which is there's kind of two ways to look at it, right? So I remember when I was trying to define God, and I finally came up with the idea that, oh my gosh, there's kind of what there is, and then there's things that either we don't know they are or they're not. And the things that are, we call them the universe. And so what I kind of ended up saying was, whatever it is that I'm labeling God would be everything, and it would be, the universe. In other words, that's what, and it was almost like in my mind, to borrow your revelation, it was like a revelation where I realized all this time what I had been seeking was reality in the universe, and that's what I'd been searching for, right? So my ultimate search for God led me to what I would now call reality. And it wasn't divine at all, except in the sense of, to me, it was an awesome thing. And so for about a week, I identified with the pantheist label because of that. And it was just a way of saying all this time I was looking for the universe. And I think, though, there's another perspective of looking at it, which would be the idea, like what Don is talking about, where it's like, well, let's go ahead and just repackage the label of God and make it the universe. And then we'll just start selling it like that. And when you kind of go at it from that angle, you run into the problems that Don is talking about, where you're saying God, and you have all this miscommunication because all of these people have their own preconceived ideas about the God that you're talking about and what that God is and what it represents and how it functions and whether or not it's, cognizant. There's all these things that come to play, so that you end up actually creating chaos when you may, in fact, be trying to simplify. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. Okay, so I'll be honest with you guys. I've been on the fence between religious and atheist for quite a while now, and I think you guys have successfully deconverted me.
Well, we're just asking questions and trying to get folks to think a little bit about it. A lot of folks don't think very much about their religious upbringing and their religious claims that they claim to believe, and when you start to do that, they start to get very murky and muddy and confused.
Yeah, the more you search, the more you really search in ways that make sense. Obviously, there's a lot of people that would have you search in ways that don't make sense because that works for their benefit. But I wouldn't recommend those ways.
Well, very small bit of backstory. I grew up religious. My dad's a minister, and I currently go to a Christian university and stuff.
Wow.
But I for many years, I've always. I've never been much of a fundamentalist, and I've always been, questioning why things are in the religion I've been brought up in.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last year and a half, I would say, of course, considering my environment I'm in, I can't be too outspoken about it, but sure. I've been kind of leaning closer to the non-religious atheistic side.
Mm-hmm.
And
I would say spend about a week in the pantheist camp and then just come on over to the atheist label.
Read some Spinoza,
maybe. It's a nice transition.
I feel like I've been in the pantheist, for lack of a better term, pantheist camp for a little while now, and I'll be honest, I think you guys kind of convinced me.
Well, it's a pleasant thing to think, oh, there's something out there that is watching us and caring for us and making sure things are going okay, and if I have a problem, I can talk to them. And these sorts of things, they're very comforting thoughts. Yeah. But
another comforting thought, though, is I'm self-reliant and I can do this myself.
Yeah. But I was just going to say, let's file that under wishful thinking, because we don't have any evidence for that.
And I mean, ultimately, you can say all day, I think you guys convinced me. But in the end, what convinces anybody is what they make of the evidence. So, I mean, it's just about looking at all the angles and looking at what's in front of you and drawing your own conclusions. And there's never going to be, I think that, don't get me wrong, I'm not harshing on you and I understand what you're describing, but this idea that someone convinces me of something, it's almost like, if that were true, if I believed something because John was very convincing, as opposed to I looked at this evidence and convinced myself. Yeah, he's just so charming and influential. But the reality is that you really don't want to be convinced by someone of something. You want to examine what they're telling you, look at what they're giving you, look at what other people are giving you. You want to look at all of it and ultimately draw your own conclusion, because those are the conclusions that tend to stick. And when I say stick, I don't mean like you never change your mind, because when you start drawing conclusions that way, you begin to realize how flexible conclusions can be. But it means more when you have a clear understanding of why you came to something, and can articulate that to other people because you came to it. Not because someone said something to you that sounded really smart, and so you were just like, that sounds really smart, so it must be right. When you actually understand what got you to your conclusion, you feel more solid about it.
Amen, Sister Tracie. And I would emphasize, if you have a well-working bullshit detector, it's going to help you in life in lots of different ways, and not just religion, these sorts of things, and looking at the evidence and looking at skepticism and these sorts of things. And I look at evidence all the time in my job. I'm a computer programmer. When I go find a bug, I look at what behavior there is,
sure, what's it doing,
and try to reason backward.
What is this computer thinking based on what it's doing? Yeah.
So anyway, those skills are very helpful. It's not just religion; it's all sorts of things.
And this is why I don't like the idea, and it's not every religion, but I don't like the idea when a religion puts forward this thing and they basically say you don't need to understand or you're not meant to understand. And it's like when you come to conclusions that you have been told to accept, but you're told you shouldn't or don't need to understand why you accept it. Right. That's a problem right there. That should be a huge red flag that someone's selling you something.
Those alarm bells should be ringing really loud, right?
Yeah.
Well, all right. Good luck with your journey.
Yeah, it was a very interesting call. It was a little different angle than I expected, but I enjoyed the talk.
I actually very much appreciate everything you guys have said. It means a lot. It gave me a lot to think about, and it means a lot to first-time caller. You guys have been great.
All right.
Thanks for thanks, guys.
Okay,
thank you very much.
We're going to let James go. Goodbye.
Bye, James.